Well, welcome to Autistics Unscripted, Season 2. I am here today with Jennifer McFarland, and I am looking forward to getting to know you a little bit more and, yeah, just holding space together to share your story with folks. So, one of the things that you mentioned that you like, how you refer to yourself is an author habit guide. Or
Mhm.
is that like two separate things? Author and then
Author
habit
and
guide.
habit guide. Yeah,
Okay,
just
tell me what a habit
separate
guide
but
is.
so I developed this process in order to follow through on my goals. And I found that the key was creating a habit for me.
Mm,
I started this back before I really recognized how big of an impact ADHD was making on me. Like I
mm,
had self-diagnosed myself, but sort of the prevailing wisdom was you're grown up, you're female, it's not that big of a deal,
you're fine.
you're fine. You're fine. But I did research for my younger son, and the more research I did, the more I was like, oh, that's sounds familiar.
Right.
So I already knew that I had ADHD, but I just didn't have any support or any kind of anything I was doing to address that. But I was really frustrated without I wasn't following through with my goals.
Mm,
And so I started studying habits and kind of a lot of the related topics that go along with that, with mindset and willpower. And I put together this whole process that helped me actually accomplish my goals and basically turn the actions needed into a habit. So I wasn't relying on willpower. I wasn't relying on
mm,
motivation anymore. I was just automatically doing the things that I wanted to do so I could get where I wanted to go. And I thought, well, this is amazing. I'm going to share this with people. And
yeah.
so that's what my book is about. It's like a DIY guide to the process. And then I also work with people to step them through the process, and either one-on-one or in a group setting. So
Yeah.
I say guide more than coach or mentor, because I'm just saying, look, I've been there, I've gone
Yeah.
down this trail, and I know like 10 steps in, there's a pitfall.
Mm,
And I can show you how to get around it. I kind of can
yeah.
guide you. I've been there, I've scouted out, and I can help you work your way through the process. So I don't know it all. I haven't done it all, but I have tried and failed and then succeeded, and in quite a few different opportunities. So
Yeah. Well, that lived experience is so important. And I think especially the more I talk with other late identified neurodivergent folks, having someone who gets it, who has been there, who is also in the process of, you know, being in the process, right? Like that's really helpful and it can feel validating and it can feel I know for me, I generally feel more comfortable with folks who are coming from a place of lived experience, like, okay, well, maybe there's gonna be a little bit extra grace here as I'm in this process.
mhm.
Um, do you find that your work ends up attracting other neurodivergent folks, or do you work with all kinds of neurotypes?
Well, I say I'm open to work with anybody, because I think that there's plenty of people for different reasons who are frustrated without being able to follow through on things. But I kind of focused on women who have ADHD because that is my lived experience. Like
Yeah.
I've been there and I've done that, and I'm still there, still there with you. So
Hmm.
and I find that there's a lot of people who maybe don't necessarily realize that they're dealing with some neurodivergence, and that could be
Mm.
why. So talking about it, it's kind of amazing to me how many times I'll say, oh, I, specialize in working with women with ADHD. And I'll have 2 or 3 women come up to me and go, I think I might. I think I
Mhm.
might be. And I'm like, okay, cool. Um, that's great. Let's work through it. And I had one experience in particular with a woman whose son was diagnosed ADHD, and he was an adult, and she was incredibly worried about him
Mm.
because she didn't understand ADHD, and he was doing things so differently from
Mm.
the quote unquote norm. And she's just like,
Right.
why is he doing this? And I'm like, no, that's normal for ADHD. She's
Yeah.
like, really? I'm like, yeah, he's doing great. He's really doing quite well. And you don't have to worry. So I'm trying to raise awareness too. Um, so many people don't recognize, don't realize neurodivergence when they're coming up against it or they're living it.
Yeah. Yeah. How receptive are folks that you work with, if you're inviting them to maybe be curious about neurodivergence if they haven't kind of come into that identity themselves, but maybe you notice certain things that kind of align with that identity. Like, do you present that to folks like, hey, maybe this is something to explore? Um,
It's
hmm,
I think it's about 50-50. I think it kind of depends on where a person is with their frustration levels.
hmm,
Um, like for my experience, I grew up with an undiagnosed, untreated ADHD mom,
hmm,
and she didn't know that she wasn't providing me with the systems that I needed to be able to handle, what I was going through. She
yeah,
had no idea. Her mom is not neurodivergent. So she grew up
hmm,
living within the systems and having those kind of provided for her. So I think it depends. Are you really, really frustrated and you looking for answers? Like, what is going on? Why do I feel so many people say I feel broken.
hmm,
I feel like there's something wrong with me. And if they're at that level of frustration, then they're pretty receptive to like, let's find answers.
yeah,
Um, but maybe if they've had more support, like growing up and in their school and work experience, maybe they've had coaches all the time who have just sort
hmm,
of naturally worked through that, or a mentor. Um, then it's like, no, I don't know if I want to label. I don't, then that
yeah,
can be a little bit less. And I just say, well, if this is something that works for you, then great. And it doesn't really matter what you call it if it's valuable to you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think like there's so much that's valid, right? In this, like, self-identification is valid, and um formal diagnosis is valid. There's different reasons for those things. People using, like, I tend to use terminology around this is my identity. Some people use the language of like this is like a label that goes on my brain, and I really think it's so much well, there's a lot of personal preference, and then I think for many of us we're also in the process of, like, deconstructing our own, like, unintentional internalized ableism that comes with the systems
Hmm.
that we're raised in, right?
Yeah.
And that, kind of setting those preconceived notions, and allowing ourselves and others, like, more space to be who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. When I first started talking about, I've only been um, formally diagnosed and treated for the last year and a half, 2 years. And when I started talking about it, my mom was very like, what do you need that for? Like, what's the big
Mm,
deal? Why? And part of what I'm trying to do when I'm putting out content and when I'm talking to people is saying, this is what the big deal is. This is like, people feel broken. People feel miserable. The statistics for untreated ADHD are ugly. You know, a lower life expectancy, more likely to deal with addictions, and, you know, just a whole host of really kind of crummy experiences that the people are going through. So, yeah, if you can raise awareness and say, this is really what's going on. You're not broken. You're just different. You're just different, and that's okay. And you know, you might need Post-it notes and timers and alarms on your phone instead of a very beautiful embossed planner with the pages closed every night. Like, when I wrote my book, I decided to like finish writing my book, and I grabbed my binder with all my details that I had already collected in it. And I had put this thing away 5 years ago, and I had a completed outline. And the only reason I didn't continue with that is because I put it away and forgot it existed. You know, it wasn't because I couldn't find time to write, because when I was writing, I was still going through very difficult experiences and time shortage. But I put it out of sight. So it was literally out of my mind. So I thanked past Jenny for doing all that hard work, and it made it much easier to move forward. But if you don't understand that about yourself, I get advice. Well, be minimalist, put everything away. Everything should have place. Like, do you understand? If I put that away, I won't think about it anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist. My whole bedroom is covered with like calendars and whiteboards and trackers because I need to see it. And and now I'm a happier person because I see it, and I'm supporting myself, and I'm doing something that a neurotypical person would probably never tell me to do. But
isn't it amazing how just like how much kinder we can be to ourselves when we give ourselves that permission to, I'm going to make this space work for me. I'm not working for this space. I think one of the people I've learned about that a lot, learned a lot about that from, I don't know what sentence sounds right now. Anyway, Casey Davis, who is, so she's an LPC. For folks who haven't heard of her, she runs on TikTok domestic blisters, on Instagram struggle care, and she's ADHD, and she talks a lot about like mess is morally neutral. Set up your house in a way that makes sense. So, I mean, it was really revolutionary when I heard her talking about like, if you need to put a laundry bin in every room of your house, put a laundry bin in every room of your house. Like, and it makes me think about, oh yeah, I have like a trash can like everywhere. I have a million trash cans because like, well, I don't want to get up, so I just want a trash can in the different places that I'm in. So, you know, that makes sense. And there's so much liberation that comes when we give ourselves permission to like, okay, forget what the catalogs look like. I need this space to work for me. And if open shelves with all your supplies, all your things, I know so many artists have that as well. They're like, I need my paints and my things where I can see them, and then I will know, like, oh, I have this. Let me do that activity.
Yeah, it's huge. And I follow Casey Davis. I think she's amazing, and just the message alone that chores and housework is morally neutral. Like, you're not closer to God because you've kept this or that done. And I've heard the advice a lot. Well, make your bed first thing in the morning, and that'll set you up for the rest of your day. Like, yeah, it'll set me up for having less energy than I need to get through the rest of my day, because that's not important to me. One of the one of the things that I feel like has been a beautiful gift that having a neurodivergent mom raising me was the fact that she said, I don't care if your room's messy as long as the door's closed. Like maybe every couple months she's like, clean your room. And she didn't look real close under the bed or in the closet. But
Mhm.
she's like, do your space however you want to do your space.
Hmm.
And if we can shut the door, then I'm cool with that, because it just wasn't a priority to her for me to have things just so. And that was like, okay, cool. I can feel comfortable and accept it as the way that
Yeah.
I am. I've always been a messy person. And that's okay with me. I
Yeah.
just don't feel bad about it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much messaging around, yeah, that there's, I mean, I always feel like a broken record. Everything goes back to this like one standard that, originated with white supremacy, and then all the other things came out from that. But I think about like sayings that I was raised with, like cleanliness is next to godliness, and things about being an early riser, and all these things that have been moralized that are not, they're not a reflection of our character, of who we are, and how we are in the world. And I notice as I talk to more neurodivergent folks, um, yeah, just the freedom that collectively we're experiencing to live in our own rhythm according to what works for us, of time of day, that your brain is on and creative, or different things, like especially working with other entrepreneurs. One of the reasons, there are a ton, one of the reasons we're drawn to entrepreneurship is being able to customize our work schedule, and being able to be like, all right, so maybe my creative brain is on from like 1 to 3 a.m. And so that's when I'm going to be writing blogs and newsletters and creating content to, to put out there. But like, that's not a normal business hour.
Mhm.
What have
Yeah.
you found in being able to kind of customize your schedule and your business day?
I'm kind of in a weird place because up until a few months ago, my schedule was kind of being dictated by dealing with other people's situations.
Mm,
So it's only been since like July of last year that I've been able to, like, I'm going to set my own schedule. Um, but it's funny how much it fluctuates. Like my husband has ADHD, and I completely burnt myself out trying to keep up with his
mm,
schedule, because he's a get right up and get going early in the morning type of person. And he's um, go, 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 go energy all day long until he crashes. And I'm not like that. I have a
mm,
totally different flow. I'd rather stay in my PJs till noon and then get, like do all the housework
mhm,
when, that way. Anyway, and I had to step back and go, wait, I have to do this for me,
mm,
or I'm literally going to collapse. Like I cannot keep up that level of energy. I don't have it. I don't have it. So that was a really interesting revelation, because I felt like it was the morally appropriate thing to match his energy because he was working so hard. And um, I had to take the month of March off or no, the
mhm,
month of April off in 2020, and just lay in bed for an entire month to recoup
mhm.
from trying to do that for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So now I'm more of like, I'm not going to get up before 7 if I can at all help it, and I'm just going to give myself time to ease into my day. I'm not, I'm not a fan of the early morning appointments. Like if you want to talk to me, it's going to be probably after 10. That's the
Mhm,
best. And by 4 I'm done, and then I'll
mhm.
probably pick up again around 7 p.m. and and have more creative time, or I'm trying to give myself relaxing time, like time to do a hobby or something fun instead of just going all the time. But I'd say like 10 to 4 is my sweet spot for trying to get work done. And then I need a break. I just need a break.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's it's interesting, like navigating that process of like picking up your own space of my rhythm is different than my partner's. I know I've had a lot of conversations with folks, or just in general, this idea of like, oh gosh, they're up and like cleaning and doing stuff. I should be doing something too. And I mean, cool if that works for you, but also where did that idea come from that when one person is doing chores, everybody has to be doing chores? Sometimes I think it's personal, like if somebody treats the other person like, ooh, I'm like resenting you because you're not doing chores right now.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to have conversations around like, hey, we're going to be moving at different paces, and I might get the surge of energy when you're winding down, and that's okay. I'll do the thing and you can relax. How is
And
that? Oh, go
it
ahead.
was hard because he and I work really well together, and we've taken on projects that are way too hard, that are way above what we should take on. And we're like, oh, well, we're into it now, so we're going to make it happen. And we'll just go and we'll just go till it's done. Like, just hyper focus on it and make it happen. And so we can do that where we match energy at times, but he's got more energy more of the time than I do. So it was a trial and error learning experience for me to really pay attention to, okay, yeah, I can turn on and I can do 3 days straight of this project, but then I'm going to need a couple days to recoup.
Yeah.
And he doesn't feel, he doesn't have the way to relax to take that. You tell him to take time off and he's just like, I can't do this. Like, I have to be going, I have to be moving.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, all my hyperactivity is in here. And
Yeah.
so that's always going, but the body not so much. So it's interesting to go like, okay, sometimes I can do this, but sometimes I can't, and I have to recognize the difference and plan accordingly.
Well, and I appreciate you pointing out that, like, yeah, sometimes our hyperactivity is cognitive and not necessarily movement. My brain is constantly going like, maybe like body could use like a little bit more of the extra energy that could be helpful. But you also said something else that you just said that totally escaped my brain. Um, oh, just in terms of like you're talking about what I call like budgeting your time and energy, right? It that's something that is so important for us to do, and knowing ourselves helps us do that, right? Like you said, I've learned that the hard way. Like I used to do like I would have an artist booth at a art festival for a weekend, and it was great. I could be present, enjoy my time. But if I was not mindful about like, you probably need to take at least Monday off of work, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday also, then it was a disaster because I was just like, it took so much to try to catch up. So now that I know that about myself, it's like I can budget for that in my schedule. Okay, I'm going to have this massive expenditure of energy, focus, socializing, just like being on. And what do I need to recover that to, pick up my activities later?
I've been rolling this idea in my head. I've grown up reading science fiction, fantasy books, love that. And the notion that a lot of people will talk about how ADHD is like a superpower, and um, I'm like, no, I think that ADHD is a lot more like magic, because if you're in any kind of world or series, quite frequently, if you do magic, there's a price to pay. Like, it is not superpower is like Superman can shoot laser after laser after laser out of his eyes and not get tired, not get bloodshot eyes, like it's not an effort, it's not draining him. And ADHD is not like that. Like, you can hyper focus and you can make stuff happen, but there's a price to pay. Something is going to give. And I did that with when I was finishing up my book, it was like, if I try to slow and steady this, if I try to go for consistency, I'm never going to get this done, because something will come up. I'll get distracted. I'll put it away, something trivial, like I'll clean up and then I'll forget to write my book. So I'm like, I'm taking the month of October of last year and I'm doing it all. I'm doing all of it. And this will be published by the end of this month. And it was. And then I slept for the month of November. But I got it done. Like, that was all I thought about. That was like dishes not doing stuff. Like, everybody buckle up, hunker down. This is what October is for me. And that's how I got it done. I recommend more support on the other end of that process and more during it. But anyway, that's why I think, talking about ADHD is a lot more like having a magical power. Like, hyperfocus can be a real power for good. You can do some very, very cool things when you are 100% dedicated, laser focused on that. But other things will fall to the wayside. Other things will go undone. And you will expend a tremendous amount of energy. So, it's, you have to, the more experience I get, the more I plan and support it. But sometimes it just can't be helped. And you just are like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm putting my head down. I'm doing this. And it's not going to be fun on the other end, but I will accomplish my goal.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, just how you've spoken to, I think, one of the aspects of hyper focus that I think is not necessarily understood is that, at least for me, it takes up so much brain space. There's not room for other things, right? Like, not just the energy to do chores or keep house while I'm doing this other thing, but just like, I don't have the brain space to think through other things or problem solve or innovate. Like, when I am in the zone of a thing, that's where my brain is. And sometimes I've tried to explain that to folks, like I know I can't, I can't go out, I can't catch up with you because I've got this thing like on my mind. and I feel like to a lot of people it doesn't necessarily make sense. But I appreciate how you described it as like, no, it's gonna take October and I'm just gonna put the do not disturb on my proverbial door. But yeah, I think these conversations that are helping us. I know every time I have a conversation with another neurodivergent person, I have like some fresh insight about my own self or takeaway, like, oh, that's a really good hack or tool. I think I'm gonna incorporate that. And my hope also with the show and conversations that I have is that it will help other people to, be a little bit more patient and understanding around, like, I think about my brain in terms of like computer power or something. And I think when I'm in hyper focus mode, that's taking like all of my, all of the, computer memory and and everything. Like, no other programs are going to run. They're going to stall out. They're going to glitch. And sometimes that's just how it is. And having like compassion for myself in that, and also like inviting others into, hey, let's understand a little bit more how this works, so you can be compassionate with me as well.
Mhm. And it's interesting because I think sometimes, if it's something I'm really interested or passionate about, I can turn that hyper focus on. I can just, I'm spending so much of my energy every day suppressing the hyper focus because of the things that other things have to be happening. I can't let myself get lost in XYZ because, someone has to let the dogs out on a pretty regular basis. And I can't just sit at my chair and just do things until I'm satisfied that they're done. I'm a big fan of jigsaw puzzles, and I started doing a puzzle one night and I couldn't stop. I think I got up to go to the bathroom twice and get a drink, and it was 10 hours. And I sat and I did that puzzle because it was just easy enough that I never got stuck, and just hard enough to be interesting. And I was just trapped. And it was like, on the one hand, I had started to do the puzzle because I was tricking myself into answering some questions. I got my brain like occupied by the puzzle, and then I just sort of asked questions, and I'm like, oh, that answer popped up, and I wrote it down. But 3 hours later, the trick's on me because I'm still doing the puzzle, and I did it till it was done. And it was like 2 a.m. and my husband's like, are you gonna? I'm like, I can't, I have to. And fortunately he understands too. He's like, okay, I'll watch some more videos while you finish your puzzle. But it's there's two sides to the hyper focus coin, and you can do some really cool things with it, and it can really kick your butt sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've definitely been like in the zone. So you mentioned trying to make some more space for hobbies, some more space for downtime. What are some of the things that you enjoy doing outside of what you have to do?
all the things. I have dabbled in just about every craft. Um, I have boxes and stacks of puzzles that I keep buying so that when I have puzzle time, I have a plethora of puzzles to choose
Yeah.
from. I love reading. I love writing. I have I'll leave the library with 5 books, and just like, and then I'll forget to return them. So so that's the other ADHD tax of like library fines. And I don't feel so bad anymore because they use the fines to buy more materials. So I'm like, I'm supporting the local library by being hardy with my returns.
Yes.
But yeah, and if I can get to a pool, I love swimming. That's one of my favorite activities to do. So yeah, I'm trying to make more time for reading and for fun and not for learning. And then I have the whole stack of crafts. I have everything. I got into watercolors during the pandemic, and I got kits in the mail, and they came every month, and I have so many kits still left to do. And then my parents got me some more kits for my birthday, and I'm like, I can paint for days and never do the same thing twice. But I love it. It's really fun. I created a craft. Like my husband and I manufactured our own craft, like art form. So yeah, that's mostly what I'm doing. Something with my hands, something to fiddle and fidget with, and something to think about. Those are my favorite.
I got my fidget too. Yeah, it's interesting. If if I ever had like a yard sale or garage sale, it would predominantly be art supplies that I have purchased. Because yeah, it's that like, ooh, I'm interested. I want to learn everything about this thing. I need all the supplies for that thing. And over 43 years of life, I've collected a lot of supplies for a lot of different art forms. And yeah, it's one of my goals too, is making more space for that creative outlet. I'm curious for you, when I'm doing art, I call it my mind vacation because it's one of the times that my brain is quiet and I'm not
Mhm.
thinking and innovating and wondering. It's just like I do relief printmaking. So I carve a block and then print. And there's something that is so just quieting and soothing about carving. I wonder if you experience any of that with some of your crafts or with puzzles of just like, hey, like my brain is quiet.
Yeah. If it's sufficiently sort of engrossing or like detail oriented, then yeah, you just get very much in the present moment, and it is a very nice break from the constant squirrel cage running in the treadmill. Um, and I think that yeah, it is. That's why it's so attractive to get into a new one, right? Because not only is it a break, it's new, it's novel,
Mhm,
it's fun. But I also think it's kind of cool because if you do enough of them, you can start doing mixed media stuff.
mhm.
And that's a lot of fun where you're just like, oh, I could take this and I could stick it with that, and I can
Yeah.
do this and that, and that's kind of fun. So it does give you a break from the constantness of the
Yeah.
thoughts, which until I tried medication, I really was not aware of how
Mm.
noisy the inside of my head was. It
Yeah.
was it was eerie the first day I woke up and went, "Oh, it's quiet in here." Like, what this is new. I didn't realize there was so
Yeah.
much background chatter going on all the time. But yeah, it's yep, I think that and water, being swimming, just it
Mm.
one of the few times I'm just very present and just there and and feel relaxed,
Yeah.
which I don't feel very often. So,
Yeah. And it's important that we have those spaces, like you said, some people use the terminology of superpower. I like your imagery of magic. There's kind of this cost. There are definitely aspects that are strengths that are like, use this for my, this is an asset that I bring to the table, like ideas, for many folks with ADHD. Um, we just have an abundance of ideas. And I think one thing that I one thing that I talk about with folks, in the realm of entrepreneurship is connecting to abundance, and having lots of ideas is really important in entrepreneurship, right? I know for myself, it's like, okay, I have an idea, launch a program, put it out there, and crickets. Okay, back to the drawing board. Let me come up with something else, put it out there. And I'm grateful for that supply of ideas. I know in in my life, I feel the most um I I feel the most, I don't know what the word is, like struggle or suffering when when I cannot generate ideas.
mm,
Um and that's when I feel like hopeless. Like, as long as I can generate an idea, it's
mhm,
something to try. It might not work, but
mhm.
it's something. I'm
Yeah.
curious what your experience is with um any of that.
Um, I agree with you. I had a portion of time where, um, right before I got formally diagnosed, is that I had quit drinking caffeine, And I quit drinking pop and I switched to iced tea. And then I unsweetened iced tea. And then I got bored of that after 2 years and I switched to sparkling water. And I just thought I was doing something healthy for myself. And I literally thought I was losing my mind. I thought that there was something wrong with me because I could not think anymore. I couldn't think, I couldn't put sentences together. I couldn't put thoughts together. I was so frustrated and upset with the fact that I couldn't think like that. And I was going through a lot of really painful and difficult things at the time. And so I thought, well, either I have like broken my brain with trauma, or I have MS? What, seriously, what is wrong with me? And I accidentally had caffeine, like a big dose of caffeine, all at once. And I got a bunch done that day. And fortunately, I put the two and two together and went, oh my gosh, I had been basically self-medicating my whole life without realizing it, between the caffeinated pop and the iced tea. And so I'm like, oh, well, this has gotta change. Like, I remember shortly after I started getting treatment and I recognized what was going on, my brother came over, and my brother's also ADHD, and we're talking. And for the first time in a while, I could keep up with the conversation and I could have the quick comeback and I could think quickly enough to be able to respond like I used to. So I think that's another reason why it's so important for me to like raise awareness about, what you might be going through, because I didn't recognize how much I was supporting myself with something that wasn't actually all that good for me, but it made it so I could think clearly. And when I didn't have it anymore, I felt like I lost my identity. Like I didn't know who I was. And yeah, I really appreciate the fact that I can problem solve and I can think and connect things quickly. And one of the things that came out of my husband and I trying to manufacture this art craft supply thing, or craft, is that we would come up against some kind of obstacle, like it was price or process or something. And if we just sat with it long enough, we figured it out. And so I've carried that experience with me since then. It's just like, I might not know the answer right now, but if I just sit with it long enough, I will figure it out. Something else will, the crazy mixed up connections that we make, something will jog a memory, or I'll read an article. My family jokes that every time it's like a drinking game. Every time I say, well, I read an article, and everybody's like, take a drink, because I'm always looking for new information. So, yeah, as much as it's nice to have a break and like that quiet space, I appreciate the fact that I have access to my mind again, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that's huge. And I find it extraordinary, the ways that we figure out how to accommodate ourselves without knowing what we're doing, which is also part of the creative problem solving. What so in the last few minutes of our conversation, how can people find you or connect with you if they want to read your book, or if they're interested in having some support in implementing some habits and getting tools for that?
I am most active right now on LinkedIn, so that's a really great place to find me. My business name is Monarch Dawn, and if you go to www.monarchdawn.com, it takes you to basically a shop page where you can either sign up to work with me or schedule a chat so we can talk about anything that you think might be helpful. And my book is on Kindle, but you have to go to like the desktop Amazon. It won't let you do things through
Oh,
Kindle because I'm not part of Kindle Unlimited, which I didn't realize when I published it.
oh,
But if you go to like a desktop Amazon, you can find me. It's called The Monarch and the Manager.
mm,
And it's the process that I developed to get myself to accomplish things, but it also has an added component of a way of describing the relationship between our conscious and unconscious mind and how
mm,
big of a role our unconscious mind plays in our behavior and making change.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that is me.
Well, I will be sure to include links and all your information in the show notes so folks will have access to that. It's been such a privilege to talk with you, and I mean, I love listening to people's stories, so I think it's awesome that it's one of the things like we start a talk show and just invite people so I can just like, yeah, okay, tell me about you.
Yeah, that's kind
So,
of the most fun ever. Like how what a great tailor-made opportunity we have now to connect with people.
right, it's fantastic. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to continuing our connection and this kind of neurodivergent collaboration in the world.
Fantastic. Me too. And I am, ardently following you on LinkedIn and all the things that you're doing there. And yeah, I'm excited to become a closer connection in the community.